In this vid, I'm going to be reviewing a deck by TheMcFargy, who also has another more Pokemon-related account called ProfessorPokemonMC, I believe. And his deck, like the deck that I just finished reviewing, is another road deck. However, instead of just being straight grass, he's got a combination of grass and electric types. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. The first thing that I noticed with the McFargy's deck is while it has a very interesting line of Pokemon, it has a lot of lines of Pokemon. And there's a total of 31 Pokemon in this deck. That's just slightly over half the deck. That's a little more than you typically see. I'm trying to think of like a general number of Pokemon that go in a deck, but it's typically around 20. So you're kind of way overboard on your Pokemon lines, but that's okay. I think I think there's a few lines that you can definitely drop without hurting the deck at all. And when you drop those, I think there's a lot of other things that we can add in there to make this very consistent and run a lot better. One other thing that is a big problem is that when you count up the cards, there's only 59 cards in this deck. A tournament legal deck has to have 60 cards. No more, no less, exactly 60. But that's a good thing in this case because that gives us, one more card that we can add to kind of work around and make better. Typically, it's a good thing to add cards to a deck. In fact, a lot of people probably wish they could play with bigger decks. But yeah, so let's go ahead and start taking a look at the Pokemon. Your starter Pokemon, you have one single starter, a card that you hope to get as your starter, and is a Smeargle, which is a decent Pokemon to be a starter right now if you don't want to take the chance on sleeping babies. Smeargle's attack portrait allows you to copy a supporter out of your opponent's hand. The only bad part about this card is if your opponent has the card Juniper in their hand. They have Juniper, you are forced to copy that supporter, and you must discard your hand and draw 7 cards. It could be a beneficial thing, but it could also critically hurt you for the game, especially, starting out very early. So, Smeargle is, it's a card that's a little bit risky, but if you find that it's working well for you, go for it. As a starter Pokemon, I would probably recommend that you increase the number to 2 or 3, just to make sure that you can get it out in time to use it. Because this is something that you want to run quite early. Another problem with your deck is that you're running 5 Zekroms. The full art version of Zekrom is the same as the holo version of Zekrom. They look quite different, but their attacks are actually exactly the same. You can only have 4 of one Pokemon in a deck, so we're going to have to bring that Zekrom line down to 4. Whether it's 3 holos, 1 full art, 2 full art, 2 holos, however you want to work out the numbers, that part doesn't matter. You just have to have a limit of 4 Zekrom. But Zekrom decks are very, very good, and I noticed another critical element to any Zekrom deck that you already have in here is Pachirisu. Pachirisu's self-generation allows you to place to attach 2 energy cards to Pachirisu when you play it down from your hand. Essentially, this can allow you to play or to attach 3 energy cards in one turn, making for a potential of a turn 1 Zekrom that's fully loaded and ready to bolt strike for 120. That can really mess your opponent up if you can take those really early hits. Unfortunately, the other essential card that you need to get that engine working, you don't have in your deck, and that's Shaman from Unleashed. Its Pokepower Celebration Wind allows you to move around energy in any way that you like. So what you do is you place down Pachirisu on your bench, attach the 2 lightning to Pachirisu with the self-generation, and you use Shaman to move those self-generated electric energies onto your Zekrom. So if you have a Shaman in your deck, or in your collection, add it to this deck. If you don't have a Shaman, I would probably recommend just dropping the Pachirisu completely and just manually attach to Zekrom, because you right now don't have any other way to move lightning energy around. The other card in your deck that I'm not sure which one you have a 1/1/1 line of Meganium, but I don't know if you have the Meganium Prime or the non-Prime Meganium. Either way, it doesn't matter because it really doesn't help. I don't think it helps out your grass deck at all. It allows you to move around grass energy, but it doesn't allow you to move around electric energy. And Zekrom, I believe, needs, 2 electric energy and 1 of any other type. So Meganium really isn't going to be a helpful line in this deck, so I would probably recommend just dropping this line completely. Another line that I think you really don't need is the Galvantula line. Its power leech life is pretty good, or not power, its attack leech life is pretty good. That allows you to heal from Galvantula the amount of damage that you did to your opponent. So if you're doing 40, or if you're running plus power, which you do run 1 plus power, so you have a potential of doing 50, it can also heal 50. But it only has 80 HP, which means that it's going to be quite easy to take out in 1 hit, and you may not even have a chance to heal it at all. So you just have right now a 1/1 line of Galvantula. I'd probably drop that one as well. Another line I think that you don't need is the Togekiss line. You have a 1/1/1 Togekiss line. The Blessed Wings is a very nice attack. It pretty much heals everything on the field just for 2 colorless energy, and then you shuffle them back in. The problem is that this is a stage 2. This is going to be hard to get up and get going, and I really don't know if any of your Pokemon, with the exception of Zekrom, are going to be able to withstand more than 1 attack for you to be able to use Togekiss. I think just getting... And that was my cats getting into a fight. Sounds like someone got bit. Alright, sorry about that. So yeah, I think Togekiss is a lot of work for not a great payoff. I mean, it could be a good payoff, but it's very risky. So I would probably suggest dropping this one. As you can tell, I'm kind of dropping a lot of things from your deck, but as you see, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 12 different lines of Pokemon going on, so we definitely need to streamline this down a bit. This card that you have in, though, I really like. Rotom's Power Mischievous Trick allows you to trade your prize cards with the top card of your deck. If you have the Alpha Lithograph that lets you look at your prizes, that would be a great card to use. If you have something critical prized, just swap it out with Rotom. And even if you don't have the Alpha Lithograph to add into your deck, Mischievous Trick can still be a useful card, or a useful power, just on the chance if you search through your deck and see that you do have something critical prized, you can use Mischievous Trick on the hope that you'll be able to swap something out. But if I could talk, if the main reason I like this card isn't because of Mischievous Trick, I really like Plasma Arrow. It can attack any of your opponent's Pokemon with energy cards and does 20 times the number of energy cards attached to that Pokemon. With M-board decks around right now, they're loading up energy on a variety of Pokemon. If that Pokemon has 4 energy on it just waiting to attack, you can snipe it for 80. That's a big snipe. And it's only for 1 electric energy. It's a decent basic Pokemon, 60 HP, nothing too big. And the one thing I noticed is that it's weak to dark, and it's not weak to fighting, unlike a lot of electric types, which means that your, Donphan can still one-shot knock it out, but other fighting types that can't do 60 in 1 hit, can last for another turn. But I do like Rotom thrown in there, so I think that's one Pokemon that can stay in the deck without hurting it. The Raichu line, and I didn't pull the Raichu to show, you right now are using the non-prime Raichu, which I think is alright, but I think this deck has enough going on. However, you have the Pachirisu from Call. If you have the Raichu Prime, the Pokepower voltage increase allows you to move lightning energy from one of your Pokemon to Raichu. So that would be a good way to get those energy off of Pachirisu up to Raichu, and then be able to use Mega Thunderbolt. Essentially, turn after turn, you have to discard them, which is a downside, but there's plenty of supporters and trainers that can get those energy back. So I would suggest that if you have the Prime, to swap out the non-Prime Raichu for the Prime Raichu, run a 1-1, or maybe even a 2-2 if you have it, and that way you can use that Pachirisu. Another card I do like in this deck, because this deck runs so many different Pokemon, you're going to always have a full bench, is a 1-1 line of Chinchino. Chinchino's do the wave attack, does 20 times the number of your bench Pokemon. So if you have a full bench, you're hitting for 100. That's a really good attack for only 2 colorless energy. And like I said, you've got a lot of lines of Pokemon going on. You're going to have a full bench. You should have a full bench pretty much all the time. So I really like the tech of Cinccino. If you have more Cinccino, I would probably recommend upping that line to probably a 2-2. And the last, oh, I forgot. You have Tyrogan here, which I think is very good for knocking out those babies, so definitely keep that. And the only other line that I haven't gone over that is my favorite part of this deck is your Serperior line. You run a 4-3-3 Serperior line, 1 of the non-ability, and 2 of the ability. I really like Serperior combinations, and I think this is I think the Serperior is the strong point of your deck. I think if you have the Shaman to move around those energies, you know, go for that Zekrom early game, but if it doesn't work out, while you stall a little bit with your Zekroms, start building up your Serperiors. And essentially, these guys have free retreat, so, you know, hit them, run away, heal. Hit them, run away, and heal. And then you can still rely on your Cinccino to do the wave and, you know, do 100. You Rotom to snipe something. If you've got the Raichu Prime, you know, you can always, you know, hit another hard for 120. So you've got a lot of options in this deck, and I pretty much tried to cut your lines of Pokemon in half just to streamline it down and hopefully make it a little more consistent. Your energy line, we'll move on to your energy line, is pretty high right now at 21, 1 Rainbow, 10 Grass, 10 Lightning. I don't think you need the Rainbow. I don't think you'll be in a position where you draw into it and you really need it. And there's, with only 2 types of Pokemon, you're going to be fine drawing into the energy you need. I really doubt that you're going to have any problems. You have 10 Grass and 10 Lightning. I think you can easily drop that down to 7 of each. You're pretty much split right now. You know, Serperior needs a couple Grass, so you could probably include a little more Electric in there just to make sure you get the Pachirisu going, assuming that you got the Shaman or you got the Raichu Prime. So maybe do 8 or 9 Lightning and only, you know, 5 or 6 Grass. But either way, I would definitely drop that down, you know, if you're just going to split it even to 7 of each. Try and keep that, 12 to 14 energy in this deck, I think is plenty. So on to the section that you really don't have too much going on in, and that's your trainers and supporters section. You know, you've got 31 Pokemon, 21 energy, but only 7 trainers and supporters. Trainers and supporters should be an easy, 20 to 30 cards of your deck, because you're going to be relying on those trainers and supporters to get the exact Pokemon and potentially energy that you need. So going over some of your supporters. Right now, the only supporter you have in here is 2 Juniper. Juniper is a great card. I absolutely love it. I tend to have a bad luck with just, having a really good card or a really good hand and being forced to Juniper it away just because it's my only supporter and I need, one other particular thing. So ideally I would drop this down to 1, but depending on what supporters you have at home, 2 isn't a dangerous number. There are a lot of other supporters I think you could benefit from. If you're uncomfortable with the lower number of energy, you can always run interviewers to help you search them out. However, I think 12 to 14 energy, you'll be drawing into them just fine, and I really don't think you'll need interviewers. This is a deck that unless you can get that Zekrom going the first round, you might be behind on prizes until you get your Serperior set up. So I would probably recommend just playing 1 Twins, just in case you're getting behind and you need to catch up. I would also recommend running 1 Flower Shop Lady to pull back some Pokemon and basic energy from your discard pile to shuffle back into your deck. I think this is a crucial card in every deck just because you never know what's going to happen. I think you also need some hand refreshers. With all these Pokemon, you don't want to be stuck with a hand of nothing but Pokemon. So I would recommend running either both. Actually, I'd probably recommend in this deck running a combination of I would go more with the Professor Oak's New Theory, but I might also throw in a Copycatter now every now and then, because you never know if your opponent may be playing a deck that relies on a large hand. But both of these, I would say maybe a combination of 6 cards, 6 hand refresher cards of these 2, highly recommended. Let's see. You only have one communication in right now. Oh, collectors. Yeah, you definitely need, I believe you've got one dual ball in here to search out for basic Pokemon. But I would definitely recommend, if you have any, some Pokemon collectors that allow you to just search for 3 basic Pokemon. If you don't have any Pokemon collectors, increasing your number of dual balls. I'd probably run a full 4 just because you never know what you're going to flip. And if you end up having too many basics in your hand, that's when your Pokemon communication comes in to be able to trade them out. You only have one communication in there right now. I would definitely increase that line to 3. At least 3, simply because you run so many Pokemon and you may only be aiming for certain ones depending on what kind of game you're playing. So I would definitely increase this line to 3 Pokemon communication just so you can get what you want. Another card that I like to see one in of every deck is a switch. You just never know when you're going to need to retreat and you don't want to pay that energy cost, so a switch is always nice. Even if your Smeargle is active and you don't want to have to waste a turn attachment to retreat, be very awesome. Let's see. I don't think you're going to have too many problems with getting energy, like running out of energy. But if you're playtesting and you find that a lot of your energy is going in the discard pile and you can't really seem to get it back, throwing something like an energy retrieval in would probably help you out. The other big trainer card that I think is another essential in every deck is Junk Arm. And this allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand to search for any trainer card you like from your discard pile and put it back. This is going to allow you to reuse those communications, those dual balls, the retrieval if you need it, and the other big trainer card that I believe should be in your deck because you're running Zekrom is Defender. Defender now attaches to your Pokemon like a Pokemon tool would, and as long as it's attached to your Pokemon, it reduces the damage done by attacks by 20. Zekrom, when it attacks, also the Bolt Strike attack, does 40 damage to itself. If you have 1 Defender attached, or even 2 Defender attached, it reduces that amount by 20 or 40 depending on how many Defender you have attached. It stays attached while your opponent attacks, so not only does it defend against the attack or the damage you did to yourself, but it also defends against the damage that your opponent does. So I would highly, highly recommend that you throw in at least 3 Defenders, and you never know when you might need it for a Serperior or a Raichu. It's just a very, very useful card and highly recommended. So I think I've made several suggestions on how to improve this deck. I don't think you need the Pokeball in this deck, and I really don't think you need the Plus Power. I honestly don't think you need the Super Scoop Up either. I'm not a fan of Super Scoop Up. It's just a very flippy coin, and I tend to flip tails. But certainly that's your personal preference. The Pokeball, I think if you increase your dual ball line, you'll be fine. So I think the Pokeball is something that can definitely be dropped, and the Super Scoop Up and Plus Power is just your personal preference. I think some of the supporters I've gone over are a little more important, but again, it's what you think works for your deck. So again, this is the McFargy / Professor Pokemon MC's deck. I don't really know if it has a name, but it's Electric Grass Swarm. So I hope you enjoyed this deck review, and if you'd like me to review your deck, just send me a PM with your list, and I should have it up within a few days.